Welcome to NRS YouTube channel, students. So in the previous last class we discussed regarding database management system. In the already you know the database management system. It is a software package and it is a set of programs. So those programs will use to extract, to update and to insert the data information in a database, right? And last class we discussed regarding what is database. Database is a well organized collection of data information. Okay, so in database we have tables. The tables is made up of number of columns and number of rows. So whatever the information you will store in a database, that will be stored in the form of rows and columns, right? So today we'll see the one more very important concept, that is primary key. That is primary key. Okay, so we have two important concepts, one is primary key and foreign key. So today we will see what is primary key. So students, here I have we have one table, right? So the table is having student roll number, student name, marks in particular subject like English, Kannada and Maths. So here I have created table. So first we will see what is the concept of a primary key. Okay, so in a table, so whatever the table you will create in a database, in a table, any one column must be, we have to make it as a primary key. So then what is primary key? So when you make a primary key or when you make any column as a primary key, so that column should not accept null values, it should not be null, and as well as it doesn't take any duplicate values, null and duplicate. Okay, so what is primary key? When you apply a primary key for any one column in a table, it may be anything, any one column, not more than one. Okay, so when you apply a primary key for any one column in your table, so that particular column should not be null and it should not accept duplicate values. Okay, it means when you apply a primary key for any column, the column should have a unique values. The column should have a unique values. Suppose take here I have an example of student table. Okay, so in the student table, the columns are roll number, student name, marks in English and marks in Kannada and marks in mathematics. So here I have a column. Suppose if I make a student name as a primary key, okay, if I make a student name as a primary key, what will be the problem? Say, if I make student name as primary key, so it should not be null, right? Yes. And one more is, it should not accept duplicate values. Suppose by chance here I have roll number 1 is a Ramesh is there, right? So in a school, in a classroom, we have two students having the same name, isn't it? Right? So in the classroom we have two students having the same name, not only two, no, we have more than one. So now suppose here I have a Ramesh. Suppose if I make a student name column as a primary key, student name as a primary key, then rule number 1 is the Ramesh. Suppose if rule number 2, the student is also having the same name as a Ramesh, he is also having the student name as Ramesh, then it should not be take. It will not take. Why? Because the concept of a primary key, it should not take a duplicate values and it should not take the null values, right? So it means if I make a student name as a primary key, if the two students having the same name, then only the first rule number is having the name Ramesh. If the rule number 2, second student is also having the same name, then it will not take. It means we should not make student name as a primary key, right? So come to the marks. Suppose in the marks, you can take any subject. In the marks, the two students having the same marks, it is possible, right? The possibility we have, the two students having the same marks, right? Suppose Ramesh is scored 35 marks in English, and again second student, rule number 2 student is also scoring the same marks. Is it possible, right? So that applying primary key for the marks, it is also not possible. It is not a good practice, right? So then only we have a student rule number. So it means student rule number is a unique value. Student rule number is a unique value. So in a classroom, each and every student have a unique roll number. So it means our primary key concept we can apply for the which column, that is student roll number column. We can apply primary key concept for the student roll number. If I make student roll number as a primary key, then the rule number should be unique, right? So this is what we call as the concept of primary key. So primary key means, so when you apply a primary, when you make a primary key for any column in your created table, that particular column should not be null, and second is you should not take the duplicate values. So whatever the values we have in that particular column, all are unique values, So before going to apply the primary key, you have to verify whether the data information what I am inserting into the column, whether they are all unique or not. If it is the duplicate, suppose the possibility of duplication of value is there, then don't make that column as a primary key. Don't make as a primary key. For example, you can take it as in a student table, if I have a phone number column, you can make phone number column as a primary key. It means, so every person has a unique phone number, and you can take Aadhaar number, right? Suppose we have a column, suppose we have one more column as a Aadhaar number or Aadhaar card number, so it means you can make it as a primary key, because every citizen of India, everyone have a unique Aadhaar number, right? So this is what the primary key concept. And other than primary key, we have foreign key also. Okay, so that we will see in the next class. So before that, here we have some data types. Okay, one more concept, very important concept, that is data types. So data types in the sense, after creating the table, what type of data you can insert, right? What type of data you may insert. So while creating the table, as a user, I have to define. So this particular column should take only this type of data information. Suppose, for example, you can take a student roll number. So in student roll number, while creating the table, what I will do? I will assign student roll number must take only the numbers, not the text. Okay, not the any alphabets. So this is what we call as data type. Okay, so we have different type of data types we have. Okay, so we have a number data type, integer data type we have, text data type we have, memo data type we have, default value we have, and next OLE object data type we have. So we have different type of database. So that we'll see in the next class. Thank you.